welcome back to the Independent Thinking Online Book Festival that we're doing in partnership with Sue Atkins and her amazing book club. And I get the privilege of speaking to all sorts of authors. We've had recordings leading up to this weekend and now some live events as well. I've tried all sorts of amazing authors writing all sorts of amazing books, whether that's books for children, books about children, books for parents, books about parents, all with things to say to the education sector, anybody working with children really. And they've all got, there's always a story within a story, there's always a reason behind the book. And this book we're looking at now with Kate Ball, the mini adventures of Freddie, and the story behind the story is writ loud and clear. It's all about the first aid and getting children on board. So Kate, welcome. If you can tell us just a little bit about yourself and what you do and how you came to be producing this. And if you want to throw in the conversation about Dragon's Den or just the sort of people you hobnob with, feel free.
That's it. Well, I've been doing my shopping this morning and I've had people sort of walking past looking at me going, I think we recognise you from somewhere, and people beeping the horn and saying, congratulations. So yes, we were on BBC One's Dragon's Den on Thursday night just gone, and we were lucky enough, or I guess we gave a good enough pitch to bag ourselves a dragon, so which is absolutely fantastic. So a little bit about me. I'm a mum. I have six young children, including 2 sets of twins, and I set up the business Mini First Aid to teach initially parents that wanted to learn first aid for having a baby or when they're first home from hospital with little ones. And I did that to sort of run alongside parenting and being a mum. Now we train over 1,000 families each week in the UK on baby and child first aid, and there was this gap for us which was around younger children learning first aid. Now you'll see different reports on first aid. Some people will say yes, it's really important that children learn CPR from a very young age. The actual reality is that very young children, so early years children, don't have the strength or capability to be able to deliver CPR in an emergency. So actually what's really important for young children is that they recognise if there is an emergency and they know how to get help and they know some basics that they can do. And also if something happens to their bodies, that they understand what's going on. So the first time they cut themselves and there's blood, or the first time they have a bump on the head and the adult is coming towards them with a cold compress or telling them to put their finger under the cold tap if they've burnt themselves. And it's really important that children understand, because quite often as parents, we miss that bit. We just do this because that's what we're told we've got to do, and the kids don't really understand. And then the other thing we know about stats with accidents is that the majority of accidents happen at home, and if there is just a parent or an adult and a child present, and it is the adult that is injured, so maybe the adult has collapsed or gone into cardiac arrest or has had an accident, is that the responsibility then falls to seemingly somebody who's very little. And so what we want to teach children to do is to recognise if there's an emergency and go and ring the special number, so ring 999, and understand where that is on a keypad, know 999, and also know that they can put an adult on their side, because they're not necessarily going to be able to deliver CPR or need to deliver CPR, but at least if they're on their side, that's in the best position for keeping their windpipe open, which allows breath. So that's the idea around about mini first aid, but also then the early years part of the journey with us. And one of the things that I created as part of that was a book, because children, 3 to 6 year olds, well, everybody really, but children love a good story. And so when we go into classes and nurseries to teach the first aid, we bring the whole class to conclusion by reading a story with the children, and then the parents go on to buy the books, etc., for their children to read at home. And the idea is it's very gentle learning, so they're reinforcing all the things they've been taught in the class, but it also promotes the parents to have a conversation with them about it. So what would we do? Who would you go to if we needed help? Do you know how to work mum or dad's phone to ring 999? Those sorts of things, so that then the first time, God forbid, an accident should happen, you have a more prepared child. That's the idea behind it.
The using the phone, as you're talking about that, I'm thinking, so now you've got the unlock with the thumb bit. How do you teach a 4-year-old how to access a locked phone to be able to dial 999?
So very much so, because obviously there are obviously a lot of people use iPhones, etc. It's a big popular brand, but it's not the only phones out on the market. So therefore, and people do have different systems in place for unlocking their phones. So we just show them generally the number 999, and then we talk to the parents about how they then have a conversation with their children about how their phone works. So for an unlock, for example, you can make an SOS call from a phone without having to unlock it. So you can go to SOS to phone. And so we say to the parents, that's the conversation you need to have following. We've shown them the digits. They all recognise the number 9. They know they've got to press it 3 times. The other thing we do with the children is we talk to them about their address, because it's amazing how many children don't know where they live. So their house is referred to home. So you pick them up from school, let's go home. You pick them up from nursery, let's go home. We're going swimming, let's go home now. And actually what you don't do is reinforce the address for children. So you say to a little one, 3-year-old, 4-year-old, where do you live? And they say, at home. So it's really important to say to children, let's practice first line of the address. And if you can, a bright button starting to learn their postcode as well, because it means then when they ring 999, they can actually say where they live. So we encourage the parents to practice with them before the class and then after the class as well, just so that, and it's amazing how many children just come up and stand and go, I've learnt my address, I know where I live now, which is really important for being able to send an ambulance to an emergency situation.
There's a new thing, isn't there? 3 words. You can, everywhere in the world has been divided into these sort of meter squares, and any 3 words will pinpoint. I just wonder whether that's something we should be teaching children as well.
Well, I think the 3 words, what 3 words requires you to have an app, and it requires the app to be on the phone, and then the phone generates the 3 words. And if you then give those 3 words to an emergency responder, they can then locate you. I think for very little ones, I think we have to start with the absolute basics. I would certainly, when we teach children of older primary school age, we go into high schools, and then we go on to teach kids that are going backpacking, D.A.V., that sort of stuff. What 3 words features all the time in our teaching. But with 3-year-olds, 4-year-olds, the really important thing is that if they are at home, they know they're at home and they recognise where that place is. They can say the number and the street, which will help get an ambulance. And it can literally save lives, because it means that it's just a quicker response for the emergency services.
And have you had feedback from children working with your stuff that has saved lives?
We've had some really heartwarming stories. We don't tend to go more than a week or so without news into our business of somebody performing some sort of emergency first aid, but when it's a story about a child, it's even more emotive, etc. And one of the ones that we had recently was a little boy in Cambridge that, from one of our sessions and learning about choking, is that he was with his 2-year-old sister, and he was only 4, and he recognised that she was choking and went and got his mum. And because when children choke, they're silent, he recognised that something wasn't right. She'd been eating, mum wasn't present. And he literally, mum came in and actually dealt with the situation, but him alerting and recognising that, without a doubt, saved that little girl's life.
Wow, that
was one very...
Is that the sort... Yeah, no, that's amazing.
We all sat in the office going, oh my goodness, that's just amazing. That's just amazing. And that's ultimately, that's all we want to achieve in Mini First Aid, is less accidents, so accident prevention, and then if they do happen, is that some of these kids can step up and be
wow, such heroes. You create heroes.
That's the idea. That's the idea. And children are like sponges. So you see them coming out of our sessions, and they will just tell their parents this is what you do, mum, dad, this is what you do when you bump your head. And actually quite often we'll get parents contact us afterwards and say, right, okay, so my child's been to the session, they've come home with the book, or I'd like to buy the book. I've just realised I haven't done any first aid training since I was a kid, so can I book on a class? So actually sometimes the kids are the ones that push the parents to say, come on, you need to learn how to do first aid too.
What got you? I mean, you got 6 kids with 2 sets of twins. How did you ever have the time to set something like this up and keep it running? What got you into this area?
They always say busy people just get busier, and I think that's so true, because part of it was that I needed to have a business that ran alongside. I used to work in training in a big commercial organisation, and trained adults and produced literature for learning for adults, etc. And I guess once I was in that baby zone, it suddenly needed to be something that I could work around me. So that's sort of where that came from. The bigger thing, which I talked about when we were on Dragon's Den, and we've had the most overwhelming number of messages, goodwill messages from it, is that my brother sadly passed away when he was just 23. He had a condition called cardiomyopathy, and if you've seen in the UK press recently,
it's in the news at the moment.
footballer who collapsed. And what needs to happen in those situations is very early intervention CPR and an AED, so a defibrillator. And in my brother's situation, neither of those things happened. And although the ambulance was on the scene relatively quickly, what we don't know is whether, had there been quicker intervention by the people that were around him, and they didn't know what to do effectively, then maybe. We don't know. What we do know is that his heart was very badly damaged. For him, he never knew, which is the best for him, because he had the fullest 23 years you could possibly imagine, and it was full to full to bursting. But there's always that question for me. So I think what sits under everything we do in Mini First Aid is we just go, we want everybody to know what to do. And that's why we want to start with little ones and then build our way up, and then make sure every adult can say, yeah, I know how to do that. I know where my local AED is. I know how to do CPR, etc.
It's amazing. And what was it with the dragons? What got them? What made them want to invest? Which angle did you come at?
Well, so we went in to talk about the books and the literature and teaching children, and we also talked about our first aid kit, which we have available at classes and online, etc. But we started our pitch by taking 4 of our 6 kids in with us, which was a bit of a risk, but because we wanted to just show how confidently children could deal with a first aid situation. So our older 2 children, who were 8 and 10 at the time, they demonstrated how to deal with somebody who was choking. And then the twins, who were 3 at the time, showed how they would get a big teddy bear to lie on his side if he was poorly, so demonstrating the recovery position and calling 999. And we knew just from seeing the dragon's reaction that we already had them engaged with us, and they were like, and then obviously the children leave and we got grilled within an inch of our lives about the numbers and everything else. And in fact, we were grilled for nearly 2 hours, and they showed 10 minutes on the telly the other night. But what we found was that we had huge positive feedback from all the dragons. So even those that chose not to invest, Deborah Meaden said she was not investing because she didn't think we needed her, which was very nice for her to say. And we had similar comments from the other dragons as well around, you're doing this or it's not the right thing for them, because ultimately the dragon themselves has to see themselves in your business. And for us, we got Sarah Davis, which is amazing. She's also a mum. She's got 2 young children, but she balances work with family, so she saw that side of us as well. But she was absolutely the dragon we wanted, because she's very linked in the product world, which means that she's going to help us do bigger and better things with the books, but also with the first aid kits, so that we can just be out there a bit more, because people still say, I didn't even know you were doing this. How did I not know about it?
Well, that's why it's great to be doing this and to sort of help spread the word, especially with because our audience tends to be sort of more teachers and schools around the world. So and I've been in education for many years, and I hadn't heard of you. But I can just see how important it is, and certainly my kids. As you're talking about addresses, I'm thinking, when my little one was 7, did she know where she lived in terms of the name? She could take people there, but on a bike. But did she know where she lived? So there's simple little things that can really make a difference. So it's fantastic for what you're doing in terms of the kit itself. And we're going to come to the book in a minute. You perhaps read us a little bit from the book, show us the lovely bright pictures. But what does the first aid kit entail then? It's more than just your plasters, isn't it?
Yeah. So what happens is, when we do a class with older children, but also with adults as well, as we ask them, we play a little game and say, what do you think should be in a first aid kit? And they come up with a list. Generally, people have got a roughly good idea: plasters, scissors, tape, dressing pads, that sort of thing, safety pins, bandages. But quite a lot of people look at us and go, I know what should be in one, but I don't have one. Or I had one which my mum or dad gave me when I went to college, and it's probably got a bit of dust on it and what have you. Or like a lot of people, I've got a load of plasters, but actually when I open the box, I've just got wrappers because the children have used them all. So we created a first aid kit. We wanted it to look nice, because all the mod cons that you have now when you have a baby, these beautiful prams and change bags, we needed something that people would keep in their bag. But one of the things that we have in our first aid kits, which is unusual for family first aid kits, is we have these, which are first aid shears. And generally in first aid kits, you get a little tiny pair of scissors that really aren't much good for cutting anything but nails or a little bit of elastoplast. But actually what these scissors do, these are paramedic shears, and if in an emergency you needed to remove somebody's clothes, perhaps they burnt or they were caught on something or something was trapped around a wound, removing clothes, they also cut through seat belts. So if you were in an accident, couldn't release the seat belts, couldn't release your child's car seat, etc., then these do the job. And so these on their own make it worth buying the kit. But then what we've done is made sure that everything you could need for a family is in there. We've got pretty plasters because kids just love plasters. And with Sarah Davis, we're going to do some really exciting things with the kits. We've got some new products to feature in newer kits. We've just partnered with Savlon, the big antiseptic cream brand, so they're going to feature in our first aid kits as well. And then the idea is that you have a bag, and then when you use products, you can either refill them through mini first aid, or you've got a better idea, having had the kit, what you've got to refill it with. And that's generally plasters, a lot of them.
I hear what you're saying about the plasters. You cut your finger and you go to the plaster board, try not to bleed into it, and all you've got is like massive ones or tiny little ones.
Absolutely, absolutely. And what you find, being a mum of 6, what I find, and particularly the 4 little ones, because there's 4 under 4, is that the one has a plaster. Suddenly everybody needs a plaster. Okay. So I have a lot of people with ghost injuries in our house that are all walking around with plasters looking like there's been some terrible attack, and actually no, it's just one person that had a small injury, but everybody's got a plaster. And
then the doll's got to have the partners as well. Or my daughter,
absolutely, Ian, you've got it. Barbie's got a plaster. You name it, they've all got teddies, they've all got plasters.
Give us a little taste of your book.
Right, okay. So, yeah, of course. Yeah, okay. So I'm going to just read to a section here, which is about when mum has collapses. So we don't know much detail in this book, but that she's either fainted or she's dropped on the floor. So
you didn't lie down, I think.
That's right. So mummy says she's feeling dizzy and she falls down on the floor. Freddie is very sensible. He remembers learning at his playgroup that poorly people should lie on their side, and he pushes mummy over so that she's lying on her side. Freddie then goes to the phone and presses 999. This is a very important number because it's the way you get help for poorly people. A nice lady called Jenny answers the phone, and Freddie tells her that mummy has fallen over. She then asks Freddie if he knows where he lives. Number 2, Hillview, says Freddie. Jenny is very nice and talks to Freddie on the phone and asks him lots of questions about his mummy. And then we go on at the end of the book, because we want a nice positive outcome, is that what a busy few days for Freddie, looking after mummy like such a good boy. When everybody's feeling better, everyone goes out for ice cream. It's always what we do in our family when we need to feel better. And then we finish the book by asking questions of the parents, which say, adults, ask these questions with your children. Do you know where you live? If someone is poorly, how should we get them to lie down? And what is the special number that we press when someone is very poorly? And that's 999. And our book is available through some independent bookshops, and we've had some more interest following being on Dragon's Den, which is fantastic. And it's also via our website, so the Mini First Aid shop, and we're part of Sue Atkins Book Club as well. So we know we feature in some of her competitions, podcasts, etc. So Mini First Aid through our website, and then to our shop is where you can locate.
minifirstaid.co.uk.com.
That's right, .co.uk. Click to the shop link, or you can go to Mini First Aid shop. .co.uk. At the moment, because of Dragon's Den, if you just go to Google and you type in Mini First Aid, you'll find us, and probably some lovely pictures of us cringing in the den at the moment as well.
Are you on social media? Do you respond to people?
Yeah, so at Mini First Aid via Facebook and Instagram and Twitter, we're Mini First Aid UK. We do, I know if you're watching from outside of the UK and people say, well, how can we deliver worldwide, but also we do some of our classes and our teaching online. So we run Zoom sessions for children as well. So if anybody's sat watching thinking, I'd really love one of these sessions with a book reading with my kids, but we're outside of the UK, it's absolutely fine. Just send us a message and we'll get a trainer in touch with you.
That's great. You'll get up in the middle of the night to deliver a session to Shanghai. Great.
Absolutely. Somebody will. Somebody will. I'm a bit crackers. I probably would, yeah.
So that's so people can get hold of you. But we've done a deal as well for this festival with the Roving Bookshop, and I think the book's available there, and there are ways of getting it signed and everything. So that is just so, making heroes, so inspiring the work that you're doing, so important the work that you're doing, so obvious the work that you're doing, that it needs that we need these sorts of things, but and clearly overlooked. But what you've also got is this real the business mind to be able to sort of do it and bring it to make it work, make it happen, and do all that with 6 kids. So kudos all around.
Yeah, the book bit is the easy bit. It's
sure, yeah.
But yeah.
It's lovely to speak to you. Thank you very much. Good luck with all your plans and all your dragons.
Thank you, Ian.
Thank you.
Appreciated. Thanks so much for this opportunity. The book festival has been absolutely brilliant. Really brilliant. Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.